You know, the more I start to read these old issues, the more I start to feel as though I'm sort of adjusting to their quirky 90s style, pun-filled sense of humor. Not that that will stop me from doing my job properly, of course, but it's sort of like how you grow adjusted and attached to a particular control scheme in a video game. Once you go to another game of a similar genre but with a different control scheme, it takes a while to adjust. I don't know if I should be afraid or content with this. Issue 8's cover is just, well, kind of ballsy, actually. Sonic the Hedgehog leaves the competition in the dust. And we see Sonic dashing away from a large dust cloud, obscuring several well-known characters from Marvel, Image, and DC. The solid color background isn't really that eye-catching, but I do love the obvious shout-out to the competition, and the fact that it actually does have something to do with the story that's contained within. At least one of them. We open to our first story, Bots All, folks. Part 1. To discover that crab meat has been brought before Robotnik after he's been caught with Sonic the Hedgehog comic books. Well, that's just meta. However, Robotnik's not really ticked off about the comics themselves as he is about crab meat breaking one of his biggest rules. No reading. Robotnik prepares to drop crab meat into a large grinding machine and turn him into scrap metal, but crab meat insists that he read those comic books for Robotnik's benefit. He claims that he was getting ideas for robots based upon superheroes. Robotnik likes the idea, but comments that it will take a lot of spare parts to make robots of that caliber. Now where are we going to get enough parts for that? We cut to a few days later where Robotnik's standing outside the Great Forest, about to cut the ribbon on a new dumping pond and is broadcasting it to someone or other. I'm still confused on how things like basic cable and the mail system works in a dystopia like this. Sonic zooms by, knocking Robotnik over, but Robotnik came prepared, shining a Robotnik signal in the sky in order to summon Botman. Yes, we're really going there. He kicks Sonic away, and Sonic attempts to bash him in by running at him at 250 miles per hour. However, he merely bounces off of Botman's rock-hard robo-abs. A spin dash attack has similar results, leaving Sonic down for the count, while his friends just watch from their plot convenience monitor instead of coming out to give him a hand, or being there to assist in some way. And that ends part 1 of our story, with Sonic's friends watching him get the ever-loving crap kicked out of him. Also, I'd just like to point out that, aside from the final panel, this is the only time that his friends actually appear in this entire story, and their inclusion is entirely pointless. We start part 2 of the story with Botman standing with his foot on Sonic's stomach, raising his fists up triumphantly while Robotnik celebrates. However, before he can enjoy himself, Crabmeat, who must have been reconstituted sometime earlier, makes an observation.
What's this pile of robot parts doing here?
These are the components I used to build Botman. Botman topples over and shatters as Sonic reveals that he was moving so fast he dismantled the robot before they could even blink. Robotnik's not discouraged though, as he reveals that he's looked through all of Crabmeat's comics for inspiration, and that he's already ordered up another batch of super robots from the shop. This next one is going to be based around Wolverine.
It seems there was a slight communication glitch. Instead of sending a Wolverine bot, they sent a Wolverkle bot.
We get a cute inside joke where Sonic comments on Wolverkle's voice sounding rather familiar, and the comic helpfully informs us that Jaleel White, the actor who plays Urkel, is also the same person who voices Sonic in the cartoons. Way to break the magic of immersion for us, comic. Anyway, Robotnik quickly throws out his next super robot, the Spawn Mower. Sonic charges toward the giant lawn care apparatus. Luckily, he stops every few panels to strike a pin-up pose. Oh my god, I think I love this comic. Despite his rather intimidating appearance, there really isn't a whole lot to Spawn Mower, and he's not really that threatening or cool. So he's just like the real Spawn, actually. Thank you and good night. All Sonic has to do is yank out the spark plug wire, causing it to come to a full stop. For extra measure, he goes and pushes the thing off a cliff. This character's really over the edge. Sonic, you had it. You had it, but you lost it. What follows is a 3-panel montage of Robotnik sending out more super robots after Sonic, and Sonic destroying them in a cloud of sound effects. We have Magbot, Captain Marbot, and Mightybot, parodies of Magnus the Robot Fighter, Captain Marvel, and Mighty Mouse respectively. Sonic now stands atop a heap of scrap metal and states it's time for him to finish off Robotnik. So we've finally decided to do something sensible and actually attack the tyrant that's slowly causing the world to rot from the inside out. Unfortunately, Sonic slips on all the amassed oil in the scrap heap, giving Robotnik a chance to leap on top of crab meat and scuttle away. And so the story ends with Sonic and friends enjoying a nice meal while everyone compliments Sonic on his performance while they just stood back and watched. Of course, we're not done yet, and after a pinup page that exists solely for a pinup pun, we move on to our second story, A Little Sonic Goes a Long Way, Part 1. Come on, now we're splitting both stories in two? The story opens with Sonic and friends gathering for a bit of musical fun, where it's explained that Robotnik has banned all music from the entire planet. This is sounding scarily similar to a plot to an Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog episode. Luckily, we're not building up to something like that. A single note played by Sonic floats its way deep into Robotropolis before landing right in the mechanical ear of Robotnik himself. He flips out just as Snively comes in to show off a new creation of his, a laser that seems to have the ability to shrink down anything it's aimed at. Just one small problem, the effect only lasts 1 hour.
That's all I need to catch a spoon-sized Sonic. Once I've found him, the Freedom Fighter Finder will let me know when Sonic and his friends go beyond the Great Forest. Plus, it gives me 50 channels on the all-evil network.
He's a subscriber to Comcast? Also, it's nice to see the Plot Convenience Corporation is moving out from just monitors nowadays. We cut back to the Freedom Fighters standing on a hill overlooking the Mobius Music Hall, where they plan to go and look for some more instruments to have a proper concert.
Can I play the cymbals and the saxophone?
Why's that, Bunny?
Because I'm the sax symbol of the team.
That may just be the best pun ever. In fact, it's so good, we need to give it an award. Can we do that? Do they give out awards for puns? I should look into that. Anyway, no sooner does the group enter the abandoned and dusty building than they all get zapped by Robotnik's new invention, causing them all to shrink down. Robotnik immediately accosts them with a large vacuum cleaner, ending Part 1. A quick flip to Part 2, and... wait. On the previous page, it looked like Sonic was the only one managing to avoid the suction of the vacuum, while the others are holding onto the rug to try and keep themselves from being sucked up. But as soon as we flip the page, Robotnik's forgotten about the others and gone after Sonic. Excellent continuity. Sonic manages to temporarily thwart Robotnik by clogging up his vacuum machine with a box full of old concert programs, and the Freedom Fighters run off to find a place to hide and regroup. However, while the others were busy finding a safe place to hide, Sonic's gone on to taunt Robotnik and keep him off the others, even forcing him into an orchestra pit, which apparently destroys his entire machine. However, Robotnik came prepared and whips out the Pest Buster, a miniature handheld version of his Robot Maker machine. He sucks up Sonic quickly and prepares to finish him off.
With one press of this button, Sonic is mine!
But a violin bow flies towards him and slams the Robot Maker out of his hand. It was the other Freedom Fighters who have commandeered a massive cello and are using it like a bow and arrow setup. Somewhere, Octavia is looking at this and weeping. The attack manages to throw Robotnik off guard long enough for the shrinking effect to wear off, and they all begin to grow, including Sonic, who quite literally bursts out of the miniature Robot Maker. Robotnik quickly sends out a signal to his Badnik army to try and surround the place, but the Freedom Fighters have their secret weapon.
No, wait, not that! Please, anything but that!
And the Freedom Fighters begin to play music, driving Robotnik away. You know, I know that Robotnik is supposed to hate all music, regardless of quality, but I have my own interpretation of what they might be playing that would cause him to run out like that.
Sonic, on the run, Sonic, #1 Sonic, coming
Horror!
However, there's still the matter of the approaching Badnik hordes. Luckily, Rotors found the device that Robotnik used to shrink them, and Sonic says he has the perfect use for it. And we cut back to Robotnik's office, where all his Badniks have been shrunk down, and he's ordering Snively to take them all out before the effect wears off, while simultaneously pushing out as many more short puns as they can. This issue is pretty damn fun. I'd actually go as far as to say it is legitimately the funniest issue we've had so far, with the entirety of the first story being a fun romp of superhero parodies, with some actually funny parodies of the superheroes of the era. And of course, that one weird shout out to Jaleel White. The only problem with it is really the inclusion of Sonic's friends, who only appear in 2 panels and are otherwise completely superfluous to the plot. The story might have actually been better if it had just ignored Sonic's friends entirely. While, yes, I usually complain about other characters aside from Sonic being shoved to the side, their presence was totally unnecessary for this story. It's actually more jarring to have them there for 1 panel than it would have been to just have them not be there the entire time. And the second story? Well, come on, it has the greatest pun in the world, what more do you need? Well, if you do need something more than that, this one I really don't have any complaints about. Yes, there's that weird brain fart that Robotnik has where he just suddenly switches targets and goes exclusively after Sonic, ignoring the others, but at the same time it also manages to undo one of the criticisms I've had about past stories, including the last one, which was the underutilization of the other characters. And compared to the Olympic storyline where they tried their best and failed on their own, this story actually lets them be the heroes this time, fighting off Robotnik long enough for the shrinking effect to wear off. Really, there's not a whole lot to say about these stories, they're just both very, very solid. Not extraordinary, but definitely a very fun read. And while there are 1 or 2 glaring issues, that's all. And it's certainly not enough to ruin the entire experience. Bottom line, this is an issue that I had a lot of fun with, and I think it's definitely worth checking out. And I'm pleased to say it's our new high point for the early Archie issues. I'd even go as far as to say it might be one of the best issues to start someone out on who's interested in these early issues. Let's move on to issue 9, and oh crap, it's gonna be another Adventures ripoff, isn't it? Fuck!